Good morning, welcome to Morning Outlook. This is Kim speaking on Tuesday the 10th of September. So let's have a look at the news events first. Let's just bring this up and we'll run through what we've got coming out. Well, we've already had the employment data, a bit of a mixed figure because there was other data here which missed quite a bit, but the headline figures, claimant count, well, significantly better than expected. Although average earnings down to 4% versus 4.1, so well, there we go. That's the news this morning. We've got the Bank of Canada governor speaking later on. He actually it's destined for 1:10, but the notes from that meeting come out at 12:55. So just bear that in mind. We are probably holding on for inflation data, as I mentioned earlier yesterday. We've got the CPI tomorrow, the PPI on Thursday, and then we've got the ECB on Thursday. So it could be these markets just going to hang around for these. Right, let's have a look at the markets. Starting off looking at the euro dollar here. I'll start off looking at it from a daily perspective. We looked at it yesterday and it was coming off quite strongly. We had that bearish engulfing. It's now put it in a pivot swing, which looks like it's tippled over through and clicked the bottom of that. Now, again, bearish markets in terms of their potential. I'm just sort of looking here. We got still got that untouched monthly pivot, which could become a bit of a target. At the moment, we're just seeing it tipping its way up. It's got an untouched daily pivot. Now, whether that runs back to the daily pivot and reacts, that's what I'd be sitting waiting for this morning. Either that or a sell-off. But at the moment, it's looking like the pivot, and then it depends on how it hits the pivot, whether it reacts to the pivot or not. That's only a potential setup. It's no trigger till we see the actual price action then. So the pound, well, yesterday took out the prior lows and is has been rolling southbound. This news has been a little bit of a kicker for it. It's bounced off its weekly S1 at the moment now and running to the daily pivot. Now, as I said, when you're looking at these into the pivots, you've got to wait for the reaction. Well, this has gone through it so far. It might come back and leave a little spiky final bar there or something. We'll see what develops. But that's where we're sitting at the moment on that. Still looking bearish on the bigger time frame here now, with that lower high confirmed in. But it's a mixed bag basically. US dollar yen, oops, clicked the wrong button there. US dollar yen here then, looking quite bearish yesterday. I'll come down the time frames. It ran into its weekly pivot there, rolled over, and is looking quite bearish. In fact, come back to the dailies here. It's not really showing it on there, is it? Showing you here as well. Okay, but it's sort of triggered the downside there, but at the moment chopping along here. Now it triggered me in a trade a bit earlier than this. I was looking at the 4-hourly time frame, and it triggered the low there. So it's slightly underwater at the moment. It's really where it goes from here. I certainly wouldn't be looking to trade it either way from where it is at the moment. A break above these highs here would potentially see it running. Let me just move this here. But a break above the 4-hourly weekly pivot there would potentially see it running further to the upside there. Where it's sitting at the moment, well, it's in a bit no man's land really. Aussie dollar. The Aussie dollar bouncing off its a monthly pivot here. Now this is on a daily basis, so it looks like it could have potentially finished for now. This move, we'll see what's happening. It's got the weekly pivot above. It could be an opportunity to try and get into that trade back to the weekly pivot. We'll see how it develops here. So if it can well, we'll see post 8 o'clock what's happening. There's not a great deal of pips there. In fact, it's probably not enough to cover the risk, let alone anything else. And probably not 27. No, the risk is more than the reward on that. Now, breaking the pivot isn't in the stats. Hitting the pivot is the stat. So there's a high probability of that pivot being hit. But aside of that, really just looking at the price action here. If it hits that, well, it would have taken out this intermediate low, lower high that's taken it out. It could be setting a structural change up. US dollar CAD. See the consolidation that's sitting on this. Yesterday really didn't do very much at all. Whereas the others were all pushing and pulling or whatever else, this has not done too much, and it's just consolidating here on the 4 hourlies. So most of the action not really happening here. If you're looking for action, go somewhere else, as they say. New Zealand dollar. New Zealand dollar, like the Aussie dollar, pulling into its monthly pivot. Again, question whether we'll see something more. It has got probably a slightly better opportunity to trade back towards its weekly pivot. Again, the risk reward probably not good enough though. If you measure it properly, put the stop below the lows there, it's not going to be sufficient. May get a bit of short-term movement on it. Key thing here to watch out for is got a really clean lower high there. That could just be an ABC correction, but the C wave's too small. We'll see what shapes up from here, but at the moment, well, it's looking like it's going to put a little short-term higher low in between all of this. Basically, most of them are in quite a mess, is what I'm saying in summary here. The Swissy broke down yesterday, gave us that lower low there. It's now pushing up. A break of the top here would play whatever divergence, if there's divergence moves on the lower time frames there, into play. Just looking what's happening here. It was a right old mess there Friday, wasn't it, into this week. Yesterday was a solid move in the end to the upside. Continued pushing through that way, didn't roll over at all. We're sort of back into higher lows here. Well, at this stage looks like the dollar could have a bit more against the Swissy. The Swissy selling off. So what we're really seeing in summary on these markets is the Swissy and the yen, which were the stronger currencies, are holding up better, rolling the opposite way now, and we're seeing the weaker currencies, the euro, the pound, Aussie, New Zealand, which are all running really weak, changing course by the looks of things. So a bit of a change of guard. Okay, I shall leave it there on the individual currencies. Quick look across the other markets for those that are following gold. So gold, as suspected, hanging around those yesterday's levels really now. Yesterday held up fine. It's above its pivot. It's got the potential at some stage maybe to run back towards those prior highs. It certainly could be a draw. High is not far off giving us a higher low. So gold looking like it's got a bit more potential there now. Okay, that's gold. Oil running off this morning. Yesterday it held its own. Didn't do too bad there, but running off this morning. Yesterday really just came back later afternoon there. It picked back up there. Came short of the S1 yesterday, but double bottomed. At the moment looking soft again. As I said, we could just see a play of this later. There's no reason for it really to do too much. It's I think most of the bad news is probably priced into it, but who knows. that's Western Texas. We are seeing a shift on the, if I remember yesterday, the sentiment was shifting there. Equity markets, quick look at those. Just look at the bigger picture here. Okay, strongish rebound there yesterday. So whether or not they can do too much here, so it's running to the underside of the weekly pivot. It's hanging around that area. There's a 200 as well, the 4-hourly 200, the weekly pivot. It's hanging around that area. Maybe a break back down below the 500 MA, which is sitting there. Could see us with more downside. So really looking below these the daily pivot, break below that 34 on the shorter time frames. You're looking for to encourage more of a move off this pivot here. But certainly it's provided near-term resistance. It's whether or not it will continue now. Okay, the other markets here, the other US markets, similar price action kicking through at the moment, coming off again this morning. Not into their weekly pivot, so I couldn't even make it up to the weekly pivot for the Nasdaq. The S&P's, the Dow slightly stronger. That could be more of a, if the markets do start moving up, but maybe a bounce off the daily pivot there. That could be a bigger gainer, a quicker gainer. Coming close to home then, the DAX yesterday finally got a bounce and recovered from a lot of the movement into the pivot again, so we're seeing the same sort of price action as we're seeing with the S&Ps. It's whether or not what it does this morning here, if it starts reacting off this pivot, it could be an opportunity. So really we need to see it breaking below the daily pivot to be on the short side. Otherwise, from where it's and how it's sitting at the moment, maybe it's got to move beyond that pivot and into its R1 there, daily R1. It's a bit of an either or, just got to sit and wait and see which way it chooses. The FTSE on the other hand is looking off already this morning. It broke through its pivot yesterday, wrote that one off, but it hasn't hit the R1. If it's starting to sell off, we could see it running right the way down to its S1 down here at some stage. If not, its quarterly pivot would be the first sort of target I'd look in on that. It is looking soft at the moment, but we're only just into 8 o'clock. It's having a quick reaction, and as I say, looking soft. Of the markets, of the overall markets between the Nasdaq and these are the softer looking. Right, that's it for me this morning. I wish you a great day's trading on the old YouTube there. Otherwise, I'll speak to you in the room in a moment.